Unfortunately, the students at the back haven't come back. But just before I go into the subject of what I'm going to talk about today, I'll just say a couple of things. Firstly, I work at London School of Economics. Prior to that, I was at University of Cambridge. Clearly, I am privileged, and I won't pretend otherwise, but I have access to ensuring that capable students of India can get to some of these institutes. So what I wanted to say to the students at the back is, if you have the hope that you might study in such an institute one day, do apply for London School of Economics. There's only one course you realistically can go for because you're all MBA, which is the Masters in HR and Organizations. And where it says, can you fund, just tick the box that says yes. Because, as is always the case with the British, they don't want to sell themselves, but they have lots of scholarship money. What is also remarkable is that I come to the richest city in India, and nearly every multimillionaire and billionaire I've ever had the privilege to speak to has said, you give me a name of somebody who can go to that institution and hasn't got the money, and I will pay for it. In other words, there should be no reason why the students at the back shouldn't have the ambition to go to some of the best places in the world, but all I can say is, I do things to make it happen for students from India. Yeah? And as you can see, I have a connection to India. Of course I do. Yeah, I'm Punjabi. I'm married for 38 years. I have a son, a daughter. My son is a management consultant in London and married. My daughter is a lawyer. And I have 3 grandsons, 6, 4, and 2. Yeah? And I have the credentials and photographs that prove I'm an Indian because I've been to Indian cricket matches. Yeah? The one thing that connects all of us. Yeah? Now, why did I say that? Yeah? Why did I just tell you what I did? Can you guess? Yeah, I'm trying to make connection with you, aren't I? Because I'm sitting here and thinking, how do I keep the audience engaged for 25 minutes? Yeah? A lot of the audience goes in and out. The students don't even turn up. How do I keep you engaged for the 25 minutes for what I've got to say? So what I'm trying to do is build a connection. And the connection I can build with you is around emotion, because if you can place me, then you might understand me, and therefore you might want to talk to me. Otherwise, if I turn up and say, I've been to, I work at LSE in Cambridge, and that's all I say, you think, oh, he's in a different world. I no point even listening to him, because his world isn't my world. So that's what I'm trying to do. And actually, one of the challenges in the literature review that I was asked to do by Dr. Bharti and others, because they always get me to do all the work where it involves lots of literature review, is that that's one of the challenges that AI faces. Yeah? Because what you need is context. And actually, you can't program that in. Now, as we talk more, I'll bring out some of the other changes, but I'll at least start going through. I'm PowerPoint heavy, apologies for that, and you let me know how we're doing for time. So, look, is there a role for emotional intelligence in HR systems? Yeah? So if I'm asking that question, I mean, it's got to be yes, isn't it? Because otherwise, I'll be off the stage now. Yeah? So there must be, so I took a clue that Dr. Bhatia thinks there is, which is why he's asking me to look at it. Is EI and AI already here? Well, it's a bit worrying, but when you actually start doing the literature review and start looking at what's possible, it is. It is to some form already here. Yeah? What's stopping it from becoming more obvious to us all at the moment is cost. So we all have examples, we've all seen something, or we've heard somebody talk about something, but actually mass deployment is the cost issue. The second thing also is, of course, when I say yes, everything is relative. Yeah? Many of you won't be born then, but there was a day when we had the mobile phone, and I was delivered my suitcase, which had the mobile phone in it. I used to walk around with my suitcase to work and back. Yeah? So everything has a process of where it's developed to. Okay, let's go back a decade ago, and if I can run this video, just to give us an idea of how AI was developing in our HR systems.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, once perfected, Harry, Human Advisory Resource Robotic Interface, will replace all of your HR staff. So let's go next door via CCTV and see your HR robot on test actually in the workplace.
So, to conclude, Josh, you'd like to take holiday week commencing 6, 11, 17 for 5 days. If this is correct, state yes.
Yes, but like I keep saying, I need extra time off over and above my holiday allowance.
Josh, you would like to take holiday starting week commencing 6.
Yeah, that bit's right, but no, because...
No, you would not like to take holiday week commencing 6.
Yes, but I need...
You have successfully utilised your holiday allocation.
Look, listen, my mum is sick and I need extra time off to make sure
Which department does my mum work in, Josh?
What?
If my mum is sick, he must produce a doctor's note.
Look, listen,
This
you
is
great
correct
plastic
procedure.
pudding, it's simple.
Please don't address me aggressively, Josh. I am unable to respond.
Well, obviously still a few teething problems.
Okay, so I'm showing you that because actually I was attempting to put something in at one point. It didn't go in the end, and there were teething problems. But you can see that's where we were about a decade ago. And of course, much has advanced since then. But emotional intelligence, so my first question I ask myself is, what is it? What is it that I think I'm looking to see that AI can replicate? So for most of us, that will have a definition along these lines. It's how do we manage emotions for ourselves and with others? How do we understand what emotions are? Yeah. How do we use the emotions to influence people? And quite often, we're using emotions to influence people because they don't want to do what they are being asked to do, or we want extra discretionary effort in what they're about to do, yeah? And then how others perceive emotions, yeah? So how we perceive emotions in others is very important, yeah? It is? Yeah, you can see that. And of course, how I give you this lecture affects and impacts how you're feeling in that moment in time, doesn't it? So, okay, if those are the challenges, what we're trying to do, and of course it's implied and expressed in our interactions. It can be both ways. So I may not say something, but you might take it as a signal, and I may say something using other expressions like body language. Okay, so what's emotion AI? And I'm learning this as well as I'm reading the material, because I hadn't come across the term emotion AI or the specific study and work of emotion AI. New AI technologies that learn and recognize human emotions and use the knowledge to improve the world at work. So I'm grateful to the professor at LSE that actually told me where to look and where to find out and get some understanding. But this is a specific area of expertise that is now developing within the broader umbrella of AI and generative AI. So that was useful because I thought, oh, there are experts who are beginning to work in this field. So then I thought, how do I, with the audience, best engage with where are we at with EI in AI as at today? Yeah? So I thought, well, would the audience know the answer anyway? Well, 10% of you might. Yeah? But the likelihood is that you're not thinking about this every day. So I thought the easiest way might be, and I'm not expecting you to read everything on this slide is, but what I thought is, I'll ask ChatGPT a question and see how they answer. And then I'll ask it the same question and say, can you respond in an emotionally intelligent way? So I ask a question and it gives me a number of responses. I then ask the question again, saying, will you respond in an emotionally intelligent way? And you can see, these slides will be shared, but you can see you've got a lot of shaded area where the answer is different. So it's attempting to connect with me in an emotional way in some form or another. Now, what I will say is that actually, if you look at that just broadly, you say there's almost too much EI influence in there, so much that you could lose the message. Yeah? But you'll see if you read it what I mean. So, where else do you go next? So I thought I'll ask DeepSeek the same question. yeah? Because at least I thought the audience will have heard of DeepSeek with all the media coverage. So I asked it exactly the same question. It gave me a response, which was actually, for whatever it's worth, pretty competitive as an answer to ChatGPT. So there is something about what they've designed which is true. And then I asked it the same question in an emotionally intelligent way. And it did two things. Firstly, it gives me an answer, and you can see there are slightly less yellow shaded areas. So it's picking it up, but it's trying to be a little bit more subtle about it. And secondly, it won't be obvious here, but it's actually at the beginning and end, giving you some clues to think about in advance, and then saying what I should do to follow it up, which ChatGPT didn't. Yeah? So this AI system knows that the single interaction isn't going to be enough. Yeah? We know that, don't we? We know it's not going to be enough. But it knows it's not going to be enough as well. So that's a good way of saying, look, it's here. It's there because you can actually go and ask it a question, and it will try and answer it for you in a way in which you can be perceived to be emotionally intelligent. And although you would never literally take the answer, it's quite a good self-training exercise. It's quite a good in-the-moment exercise if you're about to do something that's difficult. Yeah? So that's sort of where we are in the AI journey. Now, you can ask it different questions. I've asked it the one there about holidays, but you can ask it different questions, and it will try and give you an answer which builds in it emotional intelligence. But you will soon get to see that the emotional intelligence that it's giving you is one where it's, it perceives and it allows you to say, well, I know I can use those words, but how I use those words is going to make a lot of difference. Yeah? So that's one application. But then I just looked at, are there examples of emotional intelligence in AI-driven systems? Well, of course there are, because that's what the whole conference is about. Although, interestingly, when I look at some of the interesting areas where it can make a difference, in recruitment and onboarding, where EI comes in as a factor is in how you give feedback, yeah? And how individuals might complete applications, yeah? Because that's what the EI bit of the AI does. So it's not just selecting candidates, etc. It's also handling and managing feedback, which, of course, is so difficult to do, isn't it? Because firstly, most of us try to hesitate to build that into our system. But if you're recruiting the very best in the world, and you've recruited one and haven't recruited the four, and you've got to give feedback, you've got to think about how to handle it. And what this does is give you tools, and in due course, do it for you. And I'll come back on the due course. Because many of you in this room will think, but you're always going to need a human. But that's only because you think you've got a human talking to you today, but you don't know. Yeah? Sorry, there were a couple of other examples there. I've just gone out of sync. Sorry, let me just go back and sync. The other two examples that I just wanted to give there was, performance management and coaching. So I've seen some quite latest examples when I was doing them, but coaching has gone quite a long way. So you can self-coach to quite a degree now using not just AI, but the fact that there's an EI component built into it. And of course, there's been a number of sessions I've sat in today where we've talked about employee well-being and engagement and the vast number of ways in which the EI and the AI elements can improve how we support the well-being of staff. But what the EI element can do is, it can do things that avoids embarrassment. In other words, you can have data systems which say, here, the employer gives you things to ensure you're healthy and you look after yourself. The good thing is, if you don't, at least you're talking to somebody who's not a human being, so you don't have the embarrassment of why you haven't done the things that you might do to keep yourself well. Okay, so another challenge I've come across, and you'll see, I've mentioned one at the beginning. There's 4 challenges altogether by the time I finish, but we have to sort of understand how the brain works in order to understand how we might build in EI more effectively into systems. So the brain actually has 3 parts, 3 significant parts to it, and I won't go through the the technical medical names, but what we need to know for this purposes is that there is somewhere, almost physically, it stores the past, and there is somewhere where physically the brain is looking at the present. And the way the brain works is it looks at the present, it looks at its past, and it builds ambition and intent and an understanding of the world. And the other thing the brain does is it looks at the past and it has taken in things that you don't know consciously that it has taken in. Yeah? Because that wasn't what you were concentrating on. So the brain is learning faster than you think it's learning because you're only in control of your conscious self. You're not in control of the unconscious self. So I call that self-reflection, and I came to the conclusion that self-reflection and future intent are clearly two things that are a real challenge to build into emotional intelligence as at today, because it exists and it will exist among humans. And if you're trying to build in an emotionally intelligent system, then other than the first thing I said, which is context, you need to address this issue, yeah? And it isn't addressed yet. I'm not saying it won't be addressed, but it isn't quite addressed yet, yeah? And we can all see that we're a bit nervous about addressing it because we wouldn't want necessarily systems to start developing their own intentions unless we had a good control of what those intentions might mean and that they drive the value systems and the culture of the organizations we belong to. Yeah? You're all okay with me? Anybody wants to disagree at this point? Okay, good. So, I then looked at generative AI and what can we understand about its journey on how it's trying to replicate the brain. Yeah? So the similarities of the brain are predictive text models which build in weightings, because our brain does that. Effectively, that's just, it's been given information. And if the information is part of its past, it registers it. The only thing is, of course, all that information is conscious in the sense that it's been put in. The large language model responses to questions are based on history and all information on the global web. So it is limited to what it looks at. Yeah? We have one or two other things that we might look at and that might influence how we think. We might have something called a feeling. Yeah? Sometimes people say, I have a gut feeling. I have a gut feeling this is the right candidate for the role. And then we in HR convert that back to something that can be that can be demonstrated in a different way. It is a predictive engine searching for the default answer through pattern recognition. And that's not what the brain is. Yeah? The brain will have intentions which will influence why it's looking for a particular answer. So in the context of where we are here, the conclusion I've come to is intent and self-reflection are the two challenges in addition to the context that I told you about before. Yeah? Okay. The next challenge that I came across was this one. So, number one. Yeah, you can all see this. So if number one is a child, what's number two? What's number two? If number one is a child, what's number two? Yeah, child and adult. And what's number three? Family, yeah? If number one is a tree, what's number two? Yeah? What's number three? Forest, yeah. So this is the challenge of data and information. So we can feed in data, but the only way the AI system begins to understand and convert that into an answer is through everything that's fed into it. So if it recognizes a child, it knows the answer to 2 and 3. Yeah? But somebody has to tell it that when it sees that, it's a child. If you change context, which is information, unless you built it in, it can't recognize that it could be a forest. Yeah? And what you will see is some examples, if you look on YouTube, where people are attempting to build it in, and they're getting odd answers. You know, sometimes, even with Alexa, you get the odd answer, don't you, which you didn't expect. Because it's so hard to build the information part in, yeah? So with data, the problem is it's only going to answer and start talking to you if once it recognizes it as a child. And yet, in the context of how the brain works, even if nobody's ever said that's a tree, and we've never consciously taken it in, we'll be able to answer the question, it's a tree. And we'll know that it's a forest. Yeah? So this is a huge challenge that's at the heart of what the technocrats are trying to do. And I'm deliberately trying to make this as basic as possible, because I said to the professors at LSE, there's no point telling me what you know, because I'm not that person. I'm the HR guy who understands humans. Yeah? But it did make a difference when I understood that, to say, this is the challenge that's stopping us from making advancements. Okay, so just a little bit of a summary. How am I doing for time? 5 minutes? Yeah? Okay, they're all talking to you. I got 5 minutes? We're okay? Yeah. So human emotions, like, it's the core of cognition, of influencing how we think. It's interactive. We make decisions around that base. And a lot of it is influenced by self-reflection, through self-awareness, and the way we form relationships, yeah? So the way we talk to our parents is different to the way we speak to our children, is different to the way we speak at work, yeah? But AI simulation is about recognizing patterns in emotional data. You have to feed it different emotions and ensure that it understands what each of those emotions might mean. And you can actually feed it data which says, if you see certain movements in faces, it might be that the individual is unhappy, therefore respond in the following way. So you can do that, but it can also misread the data, which is quite a threat. But anyways, it stimulates emotional intelligence by detecting sentiments to generate empathetic responses. That's what it's doing, yeah? And if it's got a bit of data missing, it won't respond. And if it interprets the information it's got in the wrong way, it might respond in a very odd way. Okay, so what's the efforts being made to build intent into AI? AI is learning to interpret and respond to human emotions, and therefore it is only a matter of time before it plays a widespread critical role in our organizations. Yeah? I'll give you an example of that. If any of you got an Apple phone, you say, show me pictures of a dog. It'll show you pictures. If you say, show pictures of my dog, it can now show you your dog. It recognizes your dog against every other dog picture that you have. It's the part of the journey, it's the same thing. The technologies that underpin this are referred to as emotion AI, and emotion AI is referencing to machine replication of ways humans think and measure, understand, and simulate and react to human emotions. Yeah, that's what it's doing. Intent comes from learning and experience to date, but not from beliefs, which is limited to humans. But you might say in HR, that's a good thing, because it's the belief that sometimes creates the difficulty. It's the beliefs that mean we haven't got things, we haven't treated everybody equal. So you could say this could be a positive, even though actually at one level it's a negative. I've got a little bit of history there about when emotion AI and evidence of when it was first used. It was used as early as 2007 in its basic way. But I put that history there because, yeah, I wanted to sort of bring it to where we are now. So in terms of where we are now, we've got, so I looked at these 4 systems. They've all got some AI in it to some degree. And you look at it and you say, in fact, now that I know about it, I'm thinking I'll use it. I'll use it by telling some people because it will help them to train, and I'll use it because I'm aware. But there is a strong movement to look at intent, to look at how you can replicate self-consciousness, which is the hardest thing, because even among animals, human beings are the only ones that talk to themselves, yeah? Yeah? There's you, well, there's me, myself, and I. There's 3 bits for those of you that know the theory of how the brain works. But the ability to give reasoning will accelerate EI to AI, and there is work going on that. Of course, the interesting thing is that if you look at how we might interpret it, or the person who writes the understanding of emotional intelligence, you'll get a cultural bias. And you'll see that because in some answers, you'll see the difference in DeepSeek and another system is simply because where it's been made. You know, you can see that the person who would have created would have a subconscious element of the culture and the environment they're in. Okay, now, what I will say to you, and I haven't got the copyright to show you this, but 60 minutes video, you just type in AI and EI, or EI in AI, and it comes up straight away on YouTube. But this is the latest example of a video which was July 23 of where we're up to in replicating what I showed you 10 years ago. Yeah? And this is an individual that has a pretty good conversation and demonstrates different aspects of emotional intelligence. Yeah? And you will see that during an interview, the robot attempts to actually understand the facial expressions of the person who's asking the question. So I'm not saying it's ready for marketing in the real world. It's not the case. But it gives you an idea of the speed of change that's happening. Yeah? So, in conclusion, this is going to be my last. I think there's one more slide if it comes up, but it's not coming up. Yeah, I think I've jumped one. Sorry, let me just go back one. Yeah, so in human beings, it's accepted that emotional plays a prominent role, yeah? Like we fall in love, don't we? It's harder, but there are examples where people have fallen in love with a robotic system. And of course, for those of you who might be younger and use smartphones, etc., to have relationships, it's actually, there's quite a bit of evidence that all the symptoms of the brain and the neurons it releases during love are also the same ones it's releasing when you're having an internet relationship and you don't know the person. Yeah? And there are some huge examples. There's a big one at the moment called Sweet Bobby on Netflix, which is a UK-based one, where, you know, effectively the love relationship is with a machine. So I'll leave it with, could we fall in love with emotion AI? I'm playing on words there, but the answer is, look, as a profession, there are potentially huge benefits on how we can use AI. And the emotional element of AI, even though it's accepted that there are limitations, it is accepted that never quite can be a human being. I will just give an example, which is, today, you know, look, I'm a human being, and that's what you're used to seeing. Yeah? But the credibility I have if I stand in front of you is only there because you make a set of assumptions about human beings. And of course, in 30, 40 years' time, we might exactly have those set of assumptions around robots. Nothing's stopping us, you know. And what I see is, like, my 6-year-old grandson, his starting point when he sees a laptop is, it's a machine through which he talks to people. I'm thinking it's something I type into, and I've also recently, following COVID, started talking to people, but he sees it as a machine for talking to people. The second most important thing he sees it is, it's the way we get shopping done. Yeah? He hasn't connected yet that what shops are somewhere also where you can buy things. He thinks that's where you see things, but you obviously buy on Amazon. And the third thing is, he thinks you can type into it, but he's not quite sure. He says to me, what's the point of that? Because we can do that on the mobile phone. So you can see already how the difference is, the speed of difference. And the same way, there's going to be a point in time where somebody might genuinely say, thanks for the feedback. Yes, I would like some coaching, but could I not have it from you? I'll have it from robot number 2. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'll stop there.